I came to check the alarm signal in an apartment where no one had lived for 9 years. Inside it was cold and dusty, but the printer was working. It printed a single sheet, with today's date and the phrase, "It's already inside you. Just don't look in the mirror." My name is Tom Carter, and I work as a security technician for Boston Building Securities. Most days, I'm just the guy who responds to triggered alarms, broken locks, or malfunctioning security systems, nothing worth telling stories about. But on January 9th of this year, I received a call that permanently divided my life into before and after. A motion sensor had been triggered in apartment 6B at an address listed in our database as vacant. The call came in at 9:17 p.m., right as I was finishing my shift. The dispatcher's voice had that edge to it, the kind that makes your skin prickle. "Carter, we've got movement in the Blackwood building on Commonwealth Avenue. Apartment 6B. I checked the system. That unit's been vacant for years. Probably just a system glitch." "Maybe," she said, not sounding convinced. "But the signal's strong. Consistent. Like someone's walking around in there." 20 minutes later, I pulled up to the Blackwood, an old brick building from the 1920s, well-maintained despite its age. The doorman, an older gentleman named Frank, greeted me with a nod. "Evening, Tom. Another false alarm?" "Probably," I replied, signing the visitor log. "Apartment 6B. Frank's eyebrows rose slightly. 6B. That's been empty since Old Man Rivers died. Strange place, that one." "Strange how?" I asked, pausing. Frank lowered his voice. The guy was some kind of digital archivist. Smart, but kept to himself. Found him dead one morning, suffocated in his sleep. No cause ever determined. Since then, management hasn't been able to rent it out. People tour it and then back out last minute. Weird energy, they say. I laughed it off, but Frank's words followed me into the elevator. According to our records, apartment 6B had been vacant since its previous tenant died 9 years ago. The elevator doors opened to a dimly lit hallway. The carpet was worn in places, but clean. I moved down the corridor, counting doors until I reached 6B. The first thing I noticed, the security seal on the door had been displaced. Not broken, but shifted, as if someone with knowledge of our systems had carefully moved it aside. I ran my hand over the lock. Cold to the touch, but recently manipulated. I pulled out my universal key, took a breath, and opened the door. The apartment was colder than the hallway, noticeably so. The air had that distinct stillness of places long abandoned, yet something felt disturbed. Dust covered every surface, but there were fresh boot prints on the floor. Not mine. Methodical, paced footprints that led from the door, through the living room, and toward what looked like a home office. I followed them slowly, my flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. The apartment was furnished as if someone had simply vanished midlife. Books lined shelves, coated in dust but arranged perfectly. A coffee cup sat on a side table, a ring of dried liquid at its bottom. A jacket hung over a chair, as if its owner might return any moment to claim it. The boot prints led to a small office. A desk stood against the wall, its surface empty except for a printer, an older model, bulky and out of date. Its power cable was unplugged, dangling uselessly to the floor, yet the power light glowed green. As I stared at it, trying to make sense of the impossibility, the machine whirred to life. The sound made me jump. The printer began to operate, its mechanisms clicking and whirring in the silence. Slowly, with that characteristic mechanical sound, a single sheet of paper emerged. I hesitated before picking it up. The paper was warm, as if someone had just sent the print job. At the top was today's date. Below it, in an old-fashioned typewriter font, a single line. "It's already inside you. Just don't look in the mirror." I set the paper down, trying to rationalize what I was seeing. Someone was playing an elaborate prank, I told myself. I swept my flashlight around the room, looking for cameras or signs of intrusion. Nothing seemed disturbed except for those boot prints and the inexplicably functioning printer. The apartment had a bathroom off the main hallway. I moved toward it, drawn by an impulse I couldn't name. The door creaked as I pushed it open. Inside was standard, toilet, sink, shower stall. And a mirror above the sink. I raised my flashlight, illuminating my reflection. At first, everything seemed normal. Then I noticed something off, a delay. I blinked, and my reflection took a split second too long to blink back. I raised my hand, and the reflection followed, but just slightly out of sync. I stepped back, and that's when I noticed the more disturbing detail. In the mirror, I appeared to be standing slightly closer to the sink than I actually was. It was subtle, maybe an inch or two, but undeniable. My reflection and I were not in perfect alignment. My heart pounding, I backed out of the bathroom and into the hallway. I called my dispatcher, asking her to pull whatever information she could find on the apartment's history. While waiting, I examined the rest of the apartment, careful not to disturb anything. The bedroom was pristine, bed made, closet organized. No signs of disturbance. The kitchen had dishes in the drying rack, as if someone had washed them 9 years ago and never returned to put them away. Everything covered in that same layer of undisturbed dust, except for those boot prints and the working printer. My phone rang 10 minutes later. The dispatcher's voice sounded tense. I found something on that apartment. Previous tenant was Jason Rivers, worked for DG Archive Solutions. Specialized in preserving digital records. Cause of death? I asked. That's where it gets weird. Official report says asphyxiation during sleep. But the ventilation system was working perfectly. No gas leaks, no evidence of foul play. She paused. There's a note here about his final digital activity. The night before he died, he sent himself an email with the subject line, "It has learned to repeat." A chill ran through me. Anything else? Yeah, one more thing. After his death, 2 technicians who came to clear out his equipment reported strange experiences. One quit the company a week later. The other was treated for a psychotic break, claimed his reflection was moving independently. I thanked her and hung up, my mind racing. I decided to photograph the printed sheet before leaving, evidence of whatever was happening here. I walked back to the office, but the printer was gone. In its place was empty desk space, dust undisturbed except for a perfect rectangle where the machine had sat moments before. But on the floor, there was a new sheet of paper. This one had my name at the top, Thomas James Carter. Below it, "You brought it with you. Now it knows how you speak." My hands shaking, I called the police. While waiting, I searched the apartment again, looking for hidden devices, speakers, projectors, anything that could explain what I was experiencing. I found nothing. 2 officers arrived 20 minutes later, Rodriguez and Patel according to their badges. They were professional but skeptical as I explained what had happened. They took my statement, examined the apartment, and collected the pages as evidence. "We'll file a report, but honestly, there's not much to go on," Officer Rodriguez said. "No signs of break-in, no devices, no fingerprints besides yours." "What about the printer? The footprints?" I asked. They exchanged glances. Officer Patel spoke carefully, "Sir, we didn't observe any footprints except yours. And there's no printer or evidence of one having been here recently." I showed them the photos I'd taken on my phone. The screen was blank where the images should have been. I tried explaining again, but could see them mentally classifying me as another burnout security guard with an overactive imagination. The next day, I called the precinct to follow up. The officer I spoke with had no record of my call or the officer's visit. When I asked specifically about Rodriguez and Patel, he told me Officer Rodriguez was on extended leave and had been for 3 months. There was no Officer Patel in their department. I returned to the Blackwood building that afternoon. Frank the doorman greeted me with confusion. Back again? Didn't expect to see you twice in 1 week. I was here yesterday, I said. Apartment 6B. He frowned. 6B. That can't be right. That apartment's been sealed since the fire. What fire? 2015, electrical short. Nobody was hurt, but the unit was badly damaged. Management sealed it up rather than renovate, some insurance dispute. He looked at me strangely. You sure you have the right building? I insisted on going up. Frank called the manager, who reluctantly escorted me to the 6th floor. Where apartment 6B should have been, there was a metal plate covering the entrance. Heavy-duty rivets secured it to the frame. A sign read, "Sealed property. Do not open. Restricted since 2015. This is impossible," I said. I was in this apartment yesterday. The manager looked concerned. Sir, this unit has been sealed for 9 years. Nobody goes in or out. I showed him my work order, the dispatch record. He examined it and handed it back. Address is correct, but there must be some mistake. Maybe a system error assigned the wrong apartment number. When I returned to the office, I checked our database. The Blackwood building was listed, but apartment 6B was marked as archived, inactive, with no alarm system registered. According to our records, we'd never serviced that unit. That night, I reviewed footage from my body camera, which I always wear on calls. The first 15 minutes were black screen. No video. But the audio worked, and what I heard chilled me to the bone. My voice, repeating the same 3 words over and over in different intonations, I was already. Sometimes questioning, sometimes stating, sometimes whispering. As if something was practicing how to sound like me. Desperate for answers, I sent the audio file to my friend Derek, who works in audio engineering. This is messed up, Tom, he said when he called me back. There's a layered track here. Someone's voice mimicking yours, almost perfectly, but with microscopic inconsistencies. The kind of things you'd notice if someone was copying you manually, trying to get every inflection right. Could it be digital manipulation? I asked. No way. This is something else. The secondary voice is almost perfect, but it's like learning. Each repetition gets closer to your natural speech patterns. He paused. Where did you get this? I couldn't bring myself to tell him the truth. Since that night, I've experienced strange occurrences. I wake up at exactly 3:03 a.m. every night. Sometimes with the feeling that someone was standing by my bed moments before. I've found mirrors in my apartment turned to face the wall, mirrors I know I didn't touch. My colleagues say I seem different, more distant. One asked if I was feeling well because I didn't sound like myself. 2 days ago, an unmarked envelope arrived at my apartment. Inside was my ID badge, the one I thought I'd lost during my visit to apartment 6B. On the back, scratched into the plastic with what must have been a knife, were the words, "Be careful with your voice." It's almost indistinguishable now. I don't know what happened in that apartment. I don't know what followed me home. But I've started recording myself, comparing the recordings to how I remember speaking. Sometimes, they don't match. Sometimes, the cadence is wrong, or a word is pronounced in a way I would never say it. Last night, I called my mother. She asked if I had a cold because I sounded different. When I tried to explain what was happening, the call dropped. She hasn't answered since. I've begun to wonder, what if this entity doesn't possess people in the traditional sense? What if it simply becomes a better version of you, learning to be you more effectively than you yourself can be? What happens when those around you begin to accept its version as the real you, while you're gradually seen as the imposter? I'm writing this down as a record, though I don't know who will believe it. The police think I'm hallucinating. My company has suggested I take a leave of absence. Even Derek has stopped returning my calls. Yesterday, I thought I saw myself walking down the street, but I was at home. Today, my neighbor greeted me by name when I got the mail, then looked confused and said, "Sorry, from behind I thought you were someone else." The question that keeps me awake isn't whether this thing is real. It's whether, by the time anyone notices what's happening, it will already be too late to tell which one of us is the real Tom Carter.